A very good day, ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, everyone who loves to know about what's happening in the property scene. And this is Access All Ages, your backstage pass to the real estate market. And joining us today is our favourite, Phil Swan. He is the area specialist from Lambton. Phil, thank you for joining us on the show.
G'day, Craig. How you going?
I'm wonderful. And Tom, my learned colleague from Capital Property Investment Advisors. Tom, how are you today?
Fantastic. Thank you, Rosie. Doing well, mate.
Looks like I'm wonderful, but it looks like you've been doing a little bit of artwork in your off times, mate. What have you made there?
There's been, I've got a few little personal assistants that have been decorating the office for me at home here, Craig. So, it's nice to add a little bit of colour to the new home office.
Well, it's looking rather swell, mate. So congratulations, and let the little munchkins know they're doing a great job. As we are all working from home, and this is the great thing about technology, we can use Zoom to connect, and that's what's happening these days. Now, Phil, you're the man at the coalface. There's a lot of people out there asking, is this a good time to sell? Should I buy now? Tell us straight from the horse's mouth, what should we do?
Well, that's I think a double-edged sword. It comes down to the circumstances and what your personal requirements are. But I can tell you what we're seeing right now in the market. Definitely slowed from January, February, and March. We're proving really strong months, and we were doing probably close to record sales in some of those periods. And then you come to COVID-19, which hit early March, and that definitely took a heat out of the market, and people become apprehensive and unsure of what to do. But since then, we're still getting sales away. They're taking longer to work. You've got to work harder at them. Days on market are going to drift out, which is just a natural precursor to it. But overall, it's not terrible. I think once we get some clarity from the government, which over a period of time, there's good things are happening each day as far as, cases, more testing's happening, which are all the good things. They talked about school yesterday going back 1 day a week. So I'm sort of hoping by the end of the month, we'll have a bit of clarity that they might start reducing the lockdown laws and the isolation laws. And if they reduce that a bit, I think people will feel a bit better. So right now, I think it's a good time to prep yourself to sell if you're going to, doing all the stuff around the house, getting your contract for sale ready, talking to your agent, getting all that done, have your photos done, have your house styled, and then you're in a position when you see some confidence in the market, come to the market. So, and if you're not in that position, I don't think you should panic either. That I don't think prices are going to go drastically lower. Initially they were talking down 20%. I think one of the economists, one of the major banks, some of the latest rhetoric is around 5%. That to me sounds more reasonable. And so I'm hopeful that's where it is, and I hope it doesn't go down at all, because we were going along quite well.
Yeah, I agree. I think there was a lot of people sort of waiting on the sidelines who might have decided to buy a little bit earlier, thinking there was going to be a bit of a price crash. But with all the stimulus packages from the government and the banks, helping as far as mortgage repayments and whatnot, things seem to be supported somewhat. So we won't see that massive crash, but we will see, probably a little bit less people sort of wanting to enter the market now due to the apprehension. Any sort of uncertainty reduces, but I think around about that 5% is about right, Phil.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, like, my phone's still been busy, people looking that missed out on other properties, and they said, you got anything else coming soon? I've seen the listings that we've got. There's still general inquiry. A lot of people are looking for a bargain, and I think they're the ones that are going to be disappointed if they're going to get that bargain, because with like you touched on, the repayment holiday from the banks, there's 6 months worth of leeway. And then if people are still struggling a bit for whatever reason, I think if they're smart and they go talk to the bank individually and don't try and fight it out, but go be up front, talk to your bank, say, can we have a bit more time? I think if people are on the front foot and do this, the banks are going to want to help you. The banks have been bashed in the last three years or so over everything. So they don't want to be in the media again and foreclosing on people, and that's not what their business is. So I think if people are smart and think about what they do and be proactive, we could all come through this quite well. And the other thing that I thought was interesting, where interest rates are all-time lows, the other night on TV, I saw one of the major banks offering 2.19% fixed for 2 years.
Wow.
That is just ridiculous. And if you're sort of on the edge and you're going, I'm not sure. But if you could then turn around and go to your bank and say, can I just fix for a couple of years at that rate, you know your commitments for 2 years. And they're not going to go much lower, in my view. If they would go much lower, just wow. But 2.19 from a major bank fixed, who would have thought?
It's unbelievable, isn't it? It's almost like an interest-free loan. Tom,
That's
hey,
right.
what's your thoughts, Tom?
Yeah, look, it's really interesting, I think, to watch it play out. And we hear the word unprecedented all the time, and certainly I've heard that a lot over the last 3 or 4 weeks, particularly. No doubt Phil's hearing that himself. I think one of the interesting things seems to be that sitting on the fence scenario, both from the buyers and sellers' perspective and the potential flow-through impacts there. I guess, Phil, we had a little chat offline, and you were mentioning the fact that there are still buyers out there. There are still people that want to purchase property for a variety of reasons. They might have got a pre-approval in hand. They might be ready to go and purchase property. And I think the interesting thing in my mind will be a case of, if things do turn around, and hopefully they do soon, and certainly we all remain optimistic that they will. What does that mean for the buyers that have, for the vendors that have been sitting there waiting to see what happens, not being proactive, not taking this as an opportunity to perhaps go and add some value to their property, go and get sale ready so that if conditions do improve, they can get it to market. So, Phil, I'd be interested in your perspective. Obviously, stock on market is always an interesting metric to follow in the market, just to see what's available out there, where there is an imbalance or a mismatch between buyers and sellers. What are you expecting to see on that front as we, I guess, head closer to the traditional selling season of spring?
Yeah, that's interesting, because I was actually just reading an article before we started, and it was talking about that exact thing, about there is lack of stock right now because of people are apprehensive, which makes sense. You can understand why they are. So that's another reason why it may support the market with prices, because if there's no stock, there's still a lot of buyers. Like I was saying earlier, we've got to buy, someone that's come through to me, they're looking for something, we've got pre-approval, it's running out soon. They come across it, they were really keen to make something happen in the next couple of weeks. So I'm already going through my database and going, okay, who was really thinking about it, but they're a bit unsure about the market? I'll be reaching out to them straight after this call to say, okay, do you want to do something? I've got a buyer. So I think that's a good positive sign for the market. Yes, spring is always the influx of properties, which it always is. But even last year, I don't think there was that big influx at the start of spring. So I think people are changing a little bit in what they're doing, and you're sort of seeing a steady progression of properties more throughout the year now. I don't think there's that big peak. We didn't see a massive peak in September. And then for me, this year, January, February, March was a really big spike for us. Like for us as an agency, we were sitting around the 30 properties on listings, and that's a lot for us as a small agency. There's only 2 to 3 full-time agents. So that was good numbers for us, and we did well through that period, and we reduced that down to around 10 now. So I'm actually quite comfortable being the owner that we don't have a lot of stock on the market at the moment, while people are a bit unsure what to do. But I think the other thing that could happen is the off-market might start to pick up a bit, where I think people are just talking a bit off-market, and then they're not. There's that expectation, well, if you want it, this is the price you've got to do it. And, I'm doing this off-market, so you really need to move on, and otherwise we'll take it to market and you don't know what to do. So people, I think, will start negotiating off-market a bit more.
Phil, for those who don't understand the difference between on-market and off-market, can you just explain the difference?
Yeah, sure. Really, the main difference with off-market and on-market is on all real estate portals, really. So everyone can see it. Off-market is generally something that we will only talk to people on our database, or people that have inquired just generally about if something comes up, do that. Or people that we sold to previously who said they're looking for investment property, and you're following up with that existing clients who've got with you. So the wider market will really not know what's going on. And I think you'll see more of those transactions. And I saw one quite last week, which is a pretty good dollar signs sold in New Lambton. And, that sort of tells me people are happy to do stuff off market, whereas before they're going, are we probably getting enough for a house in an off market transaction? Whereas when they're seeing what's going on and people talking about the bit of negativity about the market, what's going to happen, unsure. So I think they're more open to talking about an off market transaction right now.
So one thing I've always discussed with Tom, Phil, is that with people spending more time at home, they're going to be more dissatisfied with their homes. I want a bigger backyard, or I want a bigger living area. So I do expect when the media decides there's optimism back in the market, and they're the main drivers that affect public opinion when it comes to the property market. And you mentioned, you saw an influx earlier this year in property, and was quite active at the start of this year. That's because the media decided it was time to buy. And the underlying conditions were exactly the same 6 months earlier. It's just like, oh, well, there's confidence back in the market now, and everyone listens to the media. I mean, that's one thing you got to understand. I guess all the people out there listening is that if you've heard it in the media, it's already probably about a month too late. So get out there, meet people who are the area experts, like Phil from Crawford Real Estate, who can tell you exactly what's happening in Lambton, New Lambton, Rankin Park, all those areas. So, Phil, for those people out there sitting in their lounge rooms right now going, geez, I'm thinking I might want a new home, a better house on the other side of this. What are the steps that they should do to prepare themselves for selling season?
Yeah, well, two sides of it. If you're someone wanting a new home and you haven't purchased, as in you don't have a place to sell, first thing you make sure from a borrower perspective, go to your bank or your mortgage broker and get pre-approval and get all that done before you start looking. I know it's hard not to go start looking at houses, because I'm sure as eggs, you got to get upset when you start looking and you don't have your pre-approval. You got to fall in love with something, and it's got to be a world of pain. And that world of pain is not just for the buyer; it's also for the agent and the other side of it. Because a lot of people don't like to disclose that they haven't got pre-approval. Then they say, "Oh yeah, I'm going to make an offer. Oh, I haven't got pre-approval yet." So I really try to urge to borrowers to be open and honest with your agent.
Yeah.
Because if you tell them what's going on, they're going to work harder for you. Yes, the agent is employed by the vendor, naturally, and they're working hard to get the maximised price. But it's a relationship between all three parties. And if we all work together, everyone's going to get a result, and a good result. And everyone's going to have a nice taste in their mouth when it's done, not about that and this and that. So I think if people work at that principle, everyone will do well. If you're a vendor and you're looking at selling, get all those little jobs done, get the painting done, get everything tidy, get rid of the junk, declutter. Get your solicitor involved with the contract, make sure that's done. Get a pest and building done. It's one thing that I'm trying to get more and more vendors to do, because I know they say, but isn't that the purchase responsibility? Yes, it is, but it helps a purchaser make a decision on whether they're going to pursue this property, because they'll have a quick read of the report and go, yeah, that stacks up okay. Then they might go and get their own, make an offer and get their own report. Because if people are looking at 4 or 5 properties, they're not going to go and spend $600-700 on every pest and building report on every property they look at, because they're not going to blow that money. So I think if a vendor thinks about helping facilitate the process in a bit smoother way, they'll get a quicker transaction as well, because all those things have been taken into account. So there's a lot to think of, but reach out to your agent or reach out to me at Crawford's, and we can really help you work through this process and make it as stress-free as you can. Because for I look at it, it's a relationship that lasts a long time. You bought a property, then down the track for us, we hope that if you come to sell, you'll come to sell it again. But and touching on investors, in the last few weeks, a few of the properties that we've actually sold have been to investors who we've managed that relationship really well. So I reckon 80% of them that were investors have gone back into our rental book now. So we now got these rentals coming on our book. So we've got more demand for rentals. And the rental market is really, really strong. And even going through this with the people saying you can get rental relief and that, on our book, we've seen under 3% request for rental relief through this period. So I think that's a really good sign. Obviously, the stimulus from the government is really helping and people are feeling confident. The people that have requested it, we've given them a month, and then we'll come back and reassess that in a month when that funds have kicked in from the government. Some people will be better off. Some may not be, and we may have to discuss that in further length. But if the one thing they emphasise there that's really important as well, having a relationship with your landlords and your tenants, not just one-sided there as well. Because if you get your tenants to engage with you and talk to you about any difficulties they're having, we'll talk to them and say, okay, what have you done? Have you done this? Work through the process, not just stop paying your rent. And from a landlord point of view, I think if you look after your property, maintain it well, your tenant's happy because you've done the maintenance that they've requested, they're probably not going to be that big of a pain because you've looked after them. Surely there's going to be financial ones, and you can't help that. And that's the sad state of this. That there's going to be a lot of people that are unfortunately really badly off and lost their jobs, and they're probably, some of those businesses may never come about again. But the flip side is there's other businesses that will reinvent themselves, or there'll be brand new opportunity for businesses. So there's a lot of opportunity, but there's a lot of sadness in it as well. So I think if we all work together and we all talk about it, like, and as I say, as a vendor, talk to your agent, make sure you're telling them everything's going on. As a purchaser, be open about that. And then it does come back to landlords and tenants as well. I think if everyone does that, we can make it all better for everyone.
I couldn't agree more. And, Tom and myself work with Capital Property Investment Advisors, and, we help buyers get into real estate, both commercial and residential. And we're always about the team. We've got a whole panel of solicitors, conveyancers, people who do the property inspections, that sort of stuff. It's very important to get things moving, especially during this times where a lot of people are working from home, and there's not the standard business practices. So everything takes longer, including the banks in regards to getting finance. Any comments before we close there, Tom Haigh?
Look, Rosie, I think it's probably worth highlighting a really great point that Phil made earlier in the call, which is it's about, I guess, not only the opportunities, but adapting to the conditions. And Phil, you obviously mentioned the transition away from perhaps the more traditional approach of on-market, properties being listed on all of the real estate portals. And, as an investor, as Craig and I mentioned, we work with investors every day of the week in a buyer's agent capacity. Our role is really to match the needs of our investors with the properties that agents have got to list. And that means quite often picking up the phone, establishing a relationship with a good agent like Phil, and working together to get a deal done. And effectively, I think that's probably one thing that a lot of investors or first-time purchasers are a little bit scared of. They're a little bit concerned about picking up the phone and contacting an agent. But Phil has just highlighted the importance of that in this market. If you don't pick up the phone and don't have a conversation, the agent doesn't know you exist, and you don't know that those off-market properties don't exist. So there in itself is a huge opportunity. So probably for me, huge takeaway from this call, and appreciate your insights on that, Phil.
Yeah, another thing that I would add to that, as agents, we get a lot of generic emails from people inquiring on an existing property through domainandrealestate.com, and they just go price. And that's all they write. If they want the agents to engage with them, and this is, I'm sure I'm speaking for the wider agencies, be more open with what you want to know and talk about it, and acknowledge and respond to those emails when they're responded to, or the phone calls, because the agent will help you and work with you more if there's a two-way street. If someone's not doing that, for me, no one doesn't reply on my phone call or my email. I'm going, well, are they really serious? They're questionable in my book. What category do you put them in? So what you said is totally on the money. Pick up the phone and talk to agents, discuss what you're looking for. And I know as our agents, it will help you find your property.
Well, absolutely. And Phil, you've always been an agent that is just there to help people, achieve their dreams as far as their dream home, and also help people sell their home for the best price. And, you've never gone in there with a stitch 'em up attitude. It's always been a very genuine place to start. So if anyone wants to get an idea of what's happening in the property market in New Lambton area where Phil's located, give him a call. How do they get in contact with you, Phil?
Yeah, there's a few ways, obviously, with technology these days. Give me a call on the mobile, which is 04788 45591, or jump on our website, which is crawfordrealestate.com.au, and come through. Love to have a chat. And I think there's opportunities to be had in this market. So I don't think the ones that are sitting there going, I don't know what to do, pick up the phone and have a chat. You never know what opportunities lie ahead.
There's opportunities in every market. That's the thing. And, we don't need the media to tell us when it's a good time to buy or sell. That's for sure. Because sometimes just sitting in that lounge room that you want to be 3 times the size makes you decide it is time to sell. So yeah. There you go.
And I think the other thing there is a lot of the media is focused around Sydney and Melbourne property markets too. So getting the actual information out of Newcastle, that would be good stuff if that ever happens, where we get more detailed research for here, because at the end of the day, we are a big city. we're not as big as Sydney and Melbourne, but I think be interesting to see what we do, because we never go up 20 and 30% a year like Sydney and Melbourne, but we don't come back 20 or 30% like Sydney and Melbourne either. We're more steady and more gradual. And, that's what the beauty of the Newcastle market is. It's a good market to play in because you're not going to get that volatility, which as an investor in real estate, volatility can be good, but it can be pretty ugly.
Yeah, totally agree there, Phil. So thank you so much for joining us, Phil, on Access All Agents, your backstage pass to the real estate market. And you've heard it straight from the horse's mouth. Phil Swan from Crawford Real Estate. Thank you very much, Tom Haigh from Capital Property Investment Advisors. Great to see you, both you guys, here on the silver screen. And we will be back with some more Access All Agents. Bye for now.